Nothing seems as boring and mundane as meditation. However, the truth is that nothing can be more beneficial to your life than meditation. In recent years, both business and academic communities have shown increasing interest in meditation as potentially a way to reduce stress and anxiety, improve concentration, and even foster greater insight. What is so fascinating about just sitting down, closing your eyes, and observing your breath? The practice of meditation itself is quite simple. You have to focus on observing your physical sensations, such as the feeling of your chest expanding as you breathe in and out. On the other hand, contrary to its simplicity, it is much harder to tell how and why meditation works, and you need to start by understanding how the mind functions. All the benefits of meditation are supposedly derived from developing emotional intelligence. The ability to observe our own mind and regulate emotions. This might appear confusing. Meditation practice is about observing our physical sensations in our bodies, such as what it feels like to breathe. What have our bodies got to do with developing emotional intelligence? To begin with, what are the mind and emotions? Many people tend to confuse the mind with the brain, but they are very different things. The brain is a network of neurons and synapses that physically exists, while the mind is a flow of subjective emotional experiences, such as joy, anxiety, and anger. We have a brain, blood vessels, and a heart, but there is no such organ as the mind. We feel emotions in some parts of our bodies. Emotions are actually physiological experiences. For example, when you hit your toe against a wardrobe, you feel pain in your toe, and you find it uncomfortable. Similarly, when you feel pain and restlessness in your stomach and it is painful, you probably call that anxiety. When you experience tightness in your chest, shallow breath, you identify them as anger. Every emotion is accompanied by physical sensations. When you react with anger, you are not actually reacting to another person who behaved impolitely, but to disagreeable sensations in your body. If you have a high-resolution perception of what you feel in your body, you can objectively perceive an emotion the moment it arises, and the moment it ceases. Being aware of emotions is the initial step towards better emotion regulations. The practice of meditation is very simple. You only have to keep observing your physical sensations as you breathe or walk. But again, as soon as you get started, you will probably experience some disappointment in yourself. Despite your best efforts, you will not be able to observe your breath through your nostrils for more than 10 seconds before your mind wanders away. But that is completely fine. When you notice yourself thinking about something else, just bring your attention back to your breathing. Meditation is essentially about this going back and forth between focused and distracted, and what you do in meditation is exactly what you need to do in real life. For example, when you are working, your mind often goes somewhere else, and you may find yourself scrolling through Instagram. Then you have to notice that your mind is wandering and bring your attention back on track. If you talk about meditation in terms of success or failure, you're misunderstanding what meditation is. Everyone gets distracted with no single exception. When it happens, you only need to be aware of the fact that you got distracted, without blaming yourself, and just dispassionately bring your attention back to your breathing. If you blame yourself, just be aware, and don't blame yourself for blaming yourself. Studies show that people who meditate regularly have more gray matter in the prefrontal cortex, which is a region of the brain that supports self-awareness and impulse regulation. This practice of coming back to your breath gives you greater power to stay focused on whatever you want to achieve. Meditation also enhances our intellectual performance by fostering greater insight and creativity. Every thought is accompanied by emotions. We go through each day attaching positive and negative tags to everything we see and hear. For example, when we walk into a clothing store, some clothes make us feel good, and others don't. Then we ignore all the unpleasant clothes and go toward the ones we like, and finally we start thinking rationally about the price, quality, and so forth. Emotions come prior to our rationals. We do this with literally everything, including new information and ideas. Before we begin to analyze the information rationally, our subconscious cuts in line and labels it either pleasant or unpleasant, and our interpretation gets trapped in our emotional bias. Once our subconscious gives a negative tag to the idea, we will have very little chance to evaluate it differently. Emotions also help us prioritize different thoughts. To give an example, if you're only a day away from an important presentation, thoughts related to preparation for the presentation are a high priority, hence high anxiety, which pushes you to think more about these issues. But if you are weeks away from an event, those thoughts are lower priority, you experience less anxiety, and consequently, you are unlikely to think about them. Our emotions largely determine what we happen to think about and how we interpret things. Just being aware of our emotions sets us free from its control and enables us to think objectively and creatively. Furthermore, increased self-awareness provides a deeper understanding about human nature. If you want to know what other people feel, think, and react under specific circumstances, self-observation is helpful because the only mind you can access directly is your own. If you want to investigate how people react to a global pandemic, a tax increase, an advertisement, or whatever, you might reflect on how your own mind reacts to them. What you feel can be a clue to infer what others feel. Perhaps most importantly, meditation and resulting emotional intelligence make us happier. Happiness is a skill that can be trained, and the training begins with deep insight into the mind and emotions. Many people confuse happiness and suffering with pleasant and unpleasant feelings, such as joy, sadness, and anger. However, there is a clear distinction between them. The first insight brought from meditation practice should be that happiness and suffering depend on how we react to emotions, not emotions themselves. Even pleasant feelings can bring suffering if you fail to react appropriately. The biggest problem with pleasant experiences is that they all eventually cease. The experience itself causes no suffering, but our clinging on to them and our desperate hoping that they do not go away cause suffering. Dying flowers do not cause suffering. It is the unrealistic desire that flowers not die that causes suffering. Clinging to unpleasant sensations also makes you suffer more. When we experience tightness in your chest, which we often call anger, then our mind often reacts with hatred and rejection. I hate this sensation. Go away! But the more you hate and reject, the longer it persists and even intensifies. Rather than reacting that way, careful observation of the emotion, combined with a kind of acceptance of it, somehow makes it less unpleasant. Emotion regulation is not about never having certain emotions. It is impossible to stop emotions from arising in the first place. However, we can optimize how we react to emotions. For example, when you experience anger, you have a choice to let it go, instead of clinging on to it. People with highly trained minds can let it go the moment it arises, so they suffer less from the same painful experience. Buddha explained this state of mind with a beautiful metaphor. He called it like riding on water. Riding on water unavoidably causes slight ripples, but they disappear as soon as they arise.